Usually when we talk about a physical injury, there is this comforting expectation of precision. It is almost like engineering in a way.
Oh, absolutely. Like a very clear cause and effect.
Right. Like you break your arm, you go to the hospital, and the x-ray shows that stark, jagged white line. And the doctor just points at it and says, well, there it is. That is why it hurts.
Yeah, it is entirely binary. It is either broken or it is not broken. It is visible and, well, most importantly, it is easy to understand.
Yeah.
I mean, there is no real mystery to solve.
Exactly. It is clean. But then there are those mornings where you wake up and before you even get out of bed, you feel this incredibly heavy gray sensation just sitting right in the middle of your chest.
Yeah, that complete lack of motivation.
Yes, you have absolutely zero motivation. You do not even have the energy to reach over and pull back the curtains to let the morning light in. And I think the strangest, most frustrating part of the whole experience is that absolutely nothing bad happened to you yesterday.
Right. There is no broken bone to point to.
None at all. I mean, no argument with a friend, no disaster at work, no bad news. But the pain is definitely there.
It is the absolute definition of a diagnostic mystery. Because, there is no x-ray for waking up with a heavy heart for no logical reason. And because we cannot visually see the cause, because we can't just point to a jagged white line on a screen, it can feel incredibly confusing. And honestly, very isolating.
Welcome to today's deep dive. We are speaking directly to you, the listener. If you have ever felt that invisible weight, or if you have ever struggled to explain why you feel so low when everything on paper looks fine, well, you are in exactly the right place today.
Yeah, you really are. Today, we are exploring a profoundly helpful psychological framework, which is known as emotional weather.
And I should mention right up front, we are taking a very gentle, accessible pace today. This deep dive is designed especially for our listeners who are learning English, so we want you to absorb these profound concepts without getting lost in, overly complex jargon.
Exactly. We are really going to be focusing on the language we use to describe our internal worlds. Because having the right vocabulary does not just help us communicate better with others, it actually it changes how we process our own experiences.
That is the real mission today. We're going to explore some beautiful, simple English phrases to help elegantly describe our feelings. Because simply saying, I am sad, it often just doesn't capture the reality of what we are going through. We need better tools.
We definitely do. And what is truly fascinating here is how our mind instinctively reacts when there is no obvious external cause for our pain. I mean, psychologists point out that the human brain is basically a pattern-matching machine.
Right. It always wants an answer.
Always. It desperately wants to know why something is happening.
Yeah.
So when we can't point to a bad event like, say, a terrible day at work to explain our bad mood, the brain kind of panics, and almost instantly it turns inward.
It creates a reason.
Exactly. And the reason it usually creates is, well, it must be my fault. This is what experts call the blame cycle.
Let's really look at that word for a second. Blame. It means to hold someone responsible for a fault or a wrong. But here, the person we are holding responsible is ourselves.
Yeah, we turn it right on ourselves.
We wake up feeling terrible for no reason. And instead of just accepting it, we start this barrage of self-criticism. We ask, why am I so useless today? Why can't I just snap out of it? Why am I in such a bad mood when I have nothing to be sad about?
And if you think about it from an evolutionary standpoint, blaming ourselves actually gives us a false sense of control. Yeah. Like if my bad mood is my fault, then theoretically I can fix it.
Oh, wow. I never thought about it like that. So it is a control mechanism.
It is. But that blame just adds a massive secondary layer of suffering.
Right.
I mean, you are already feeling physically and emotionally low, and now you are actively attacking yourself for feeling that way.
It is like punishing someone for catching a cold. Which I think brings us to the core concept from our sources that really shifts this entire dynamic. Emotional weather.
Right. Think about the natural world outside your window. Nature operates in cycles. It has bright, crisp, sunny days, and it has dark, heavy, rainy days. And research in human psychology suggests our minds work in the exact same way.
Just natural cycles.
Exactly. When a thunderstorm rolls through your city, you don't look up at the sky and think, wow, the sky made a moral error.
Yeah.
Rain isn't a failure of the sky.
It is just a natural system doing what it does. I mean, the atmospheric pressure drops, moisture gathers, and it rains.
Precisely. And similarly, feeling low or feeling unmotivated or even feeling a sense of depression, it is not your fault. It is often simply a normal flow of physiological and psychological energy. Your neurotransmitters fluctuate, your energy levels dip. It is literally just the weather inside your mind.
Okay, I hear the weather analogy, and it sounds beautiful, but let's be real for a second. I want to push back on this just a little bit.
Sure, go ahead.
If it is raining outside, I can literally look out the window and see the clouds, and everyone else can see them too. It is objective. I just put on a coat and go about my day. But when the storm is inside my head, I'm the only one experiencing it.
It feels very isolating.
So isolating. It feels intensely personal. It feels like a moral failing, not just, weather. How do we actually bridge that gap?
That is exactly the friction most people experience. And a large part of the reason it feels so intensely personal is because of the language we are forced to use. The words we choose shape the reality we experience.
Right.
If your only linguistic tool to describe a complex passing shift in your brain chemistry is to say, I am a sad person, well, you trap yourself.
You make it your identity instead of an event.
Yes, exactly. That is why building a better emotional vocabulary is so critical, especially for language learners. By using weather-related idioms, we can create this much-needed psychological distance.
So let's look at how this works in practice with a classic English phrase, feeling under the weather.
It is a brilliant phrase. Historically, this actually comes from sailors at sea. When a sailor was feeling ill or exhausted, they would literally go below the deck of the ship.
Oh, literally under the weather.
Yes. They were moving themselves physically under the weather to protect themselves from the harsh storms, the wind, and the rain up above.
Wow, knowing the history of it makes it so much more physical. So today, when you say to a colleague or a friend, hey, I'm feeling a bit under the weather today, you are elegantly communicating that you are feeling physically or emotionally unwell.
Right.
But notice what you are not saying. You aren't saying your life is falling apart.
Yeah.
You aren't saying you're a broken person.
You are simply stating that right now, the conditions are rough and you are feeling the effects of it. It lowers the stakes completely. It removes the blame.
Another great weather-related word we can use for our mental state is foggy. Now, we all know what literal fog is outside, that thick, low cloud cover that blurs the edges of buildings and just makes it hard to see down the street. But when we apply it to the mind, it perfectly describes a very specific kind of struggle.
What psychologists would formally call executive dysfunction or, cognitive sluggishness.
Right. But saying, my mind is foggy today is so much kinder than saying, I am being stupid today or I am lazy.
It really is.
Brain fog just acknowledges that your thoughts are moving through a thick atmosphere. You aren't broken. You are just navigating through temporary low visibility.
And returning to that concept of blame, which we defined earlier as faulting oneself, the ultimate goal of adopting these phrases like under the weather or foggy is to stop blaming ourselves for the internal rain.
Okay, so logically, I understand the vocabulary now, and I understand the concept that I shouldn't blame myself, but knowing the word foggy doesn't actually clear the fog.
No, it doesn't.
What do I do when I am stuck in the middle of it? I mean, it is one thing to know it is just weather. It is another thing entirely to stand there getting soaked.
Which brings us to the next vital step. Psychologists have a specific tool for this called observation. It is often referred to in clinical settings as cognitive diffusion.
Observation.
Right. Observation means watching something carefully without judging it. And crucially, it means observing our feelings rather than becoming them.
Wait, I want to make sure I understand the mechanism here. How do we usually become our feelings?
Well, think about the habitual sentence we use when we are unhappy. We say, I am sad.
Okay, yes. I am sad, I am angry, I am anxious.
Right. And psychologically, when you use the verb to be, when you say I am, you are equating your fundamental identity with that emotion. You are like fusing yourself to the sadness.
Oh, wow.
The brain hears I am sad and interprets it as a permanent state of being. So the healthier, much more accurate framing is I feel sadness right now.
Oh, that is a profound shift. By changing the verb, I'm changing my entire relationship to the emotion. I am makes it who I am. I feel makes it a visitor. Saying I am sad is almost like walking outside in a thunderstorm and yelling, I am the rain, which is obviously impossible. I mean, we aren't the weather. We just experience it.
That is a perfect analogy. And to help visualize this separation, therapists often use the sky analogy. I want you, the listener, to try to visualize this right now. Imagine yourself as a vast, eternal, brilliant blue sky.
Just a huge, endless expanse of blue.
Now, emotions like depression, anxiety, frustration, or even joy, these are simply storm clouds passing through that sky. Some days there are light, fluffy white clouds. Other days, dark, black storm clouds roll in.
Yeah.
They might block the sun entirely for a few days. They might bring a terrifying storm with thunder and heavy rain. But And this is the absolute core of the concept. The clouds do not equal the sky.
The sky is just the container.
Yes. No matter how thick the storm clouds are, no matter how violent the lightning is, the blue sky is always behind them, waiting peacefully. The sky is never fundamentally damaged by a storm. It just holds the space for the weather to happen.
That brings such a deep sense of relief. And it taps right into the concept of things being temporary. Temporary, meaning something that only lasts for a limited amount of time. It is the exact opposite of permanent.
Right. Storms are, by the laws of physics, always temporary. I mean, they eventually run out of rain. The atmospheric pressure always stabilizes.
There's an elegant, historic English phrase that captures this exact feeling. This too shall pass. It is such a poetic sentence. It means that no matter how dark and heavy the storm clouds are in your mind right now, it will not last forever. This too shall pass.
Let's reflect on the mental tools we are building here. Recognizing the temporary nature of things calms the brain's panic response. Viewing our heavy emotions as passing storm clouds prevents us from internalizing them.
Right.
And practicing the act to observe, to watch the emotion without becoming it. That gives us back our control.
Okay, I am entirely on board with the philosophy. Recognizing that we are the vast blue sky and that the dark clouds will eventually pass, that is deeply comforting. But I still have a very practical problem.
Okay, what is it?
If it is currently pouring rain on me and I have to go to work or take care of my kids or just get through the day, what am I supposed to actually do? I mean, the sky metaphor is beautiful, but I am still experiencing the storm.
It is a very fair point. Philosophy is great, but reality requires action. And this is where we introduce the concept of the emotional umbrella.
The emotional umbrella, I really like that.
The logic is pretty simple. Since you cannot control the weather, you must learn to carry an umbrella. You need practical, deliberate strategies for taking care of yourself on a mental rainy day.
So what does carrying an umbrella actually look like in practice?
Well, the first step is often the hardest. Stop fighting the rain. When we wake up with that foggy, heavy mind we talked about earlier, our first instinct is usually resistance.
Oh, absolutely.
We try to force ourselves to be productive. We drink like 3 cups of coffee. We try to force a smile. We demand that our brains snap out of it immediately.
Because we want to fix it. We are back to that desire for control.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But fighting the rain is completely exhausting. It creates what psychologists sometimes call dirty pain. The clean pain is the natural sadness you woke up with. The dirty pain is the exhaustion, the frustration, and the anger you create by fighting the sadness all day long.
So if we don't fight it, what is the alternative? Just like giving up?
Not giving up, practicing permission. You grant yourself official, guilt-free approval to just say, well, today is a rainy day.
Okay.
You adjust your expectations. On a literal rainy day, you wouldn't plan a picnic. So on a mental rainy day, you permit yourself to do less. It is completely okay to order takeout food instead of cooking a big meal.
Right.
It is okay to lie on the sofa. It is okay to just zone out.
That word permission is so liberating. I mean, we're so conditioned to always be optimizing our time. Hearing that you have permission to rest when you are under the weather is incredibly validating.
And once you stop fighting, you move to the second step. Create a cozy shelter. A shelter is a safe harbor that protects you from the elements. If there is a storm raging outside, you go indoors.
So how do we build a shelter for the mind?
It relies heavily on sensory grounding. When your brain is caught in a stressful emotional storm, it is essentially in a mild state of fight or flight.
Right, the nervous system is on high alert.
Exactly. You cannot logic your way out of that. You have to speak directly to your nervous system. You have to give your body physical proof that it is safe.
That makes so much sense. So it is not just about thinking happy thoughts. It is about actively changing your physical environment.
Precisely. Turning on a warm, soft yellow lamp instead of those harsh, bright overhead fluorescent lights. Putting on some slow, predictable music.
Like some chill lo-fi beats.
Yeah, exactly. Wrapping yourself in a heavy blanket. Making a cup of hot tea or cocoa.
These all sound like the exact definition of the word cozy, which is such a uniquely comforting word in English. It goes beyond just physical warmth. It implies a feeling of safety, relaxation, and intimacy.
It really does.
When your internal weather is harsh and cold, your external environment needs to be intensely cozy to balance it out.
Because you are actively signaling to your parasympathetic nervous system, the part of the brain that controls rest and digestion, that the emergency is over. The warm lamp, the hot tea, the heavy blanket, they are all physical messages that say, you are safe.
This entire approach is basically a masterclass in self-kindness. We hear that term a lot, but self-kindness is exactly this. It is the active practice of speaking gently to ourselves and providing the downtime our nervous system desperately needs, entirely without that heavy burden of blame.
The words we use in that shelter matter immensely. How you speak to yourself when you are under the weather dictates how quickly the storm passes.
There are a few specific self-kindness sentences from our sources that beautifully capture this. If you are listening right now, I really encourage you to borrow these phrases. Use them the next time you feel that unexplainable heavy chest in the morning, keeping them in your back pocket.
Yes. The first phrase is a direct application of permission.
It's okay to have a bad day.
Saying this aloud instantly removes the unrealistic expectation of constant, uninterrupted sunshine. It validates your current reality. The second phrase reminds the brain of the temporary nature of the weather.
I am letting the storm pass.
Notice the phrasing there. You aren't fighting the storm. You aren't trying to vacuum up the rain. You are just resting safely inside your shelter, letting nature take its course. And the third phrase anchors you in hope.
The sun will shine again.
Because it always does. That is the fundamental law of weather, both meteorologically and psychologically.
Let's reflect on the language we have used to build this toolkit today. We talked about finding a shelter, a safe haven from the storm. We explored self-kindness and the power of granting ourselves permission to rest without guilt. And we looked at how creating a cozy environment actually signals safety to our nervous system.
To really solidify how all these elements work together, the vocabulary, the observation, the self-kindness, there is a final, highly practical grounding exercise we can do right now.
I would love that. If you are listening and you are in a place where it is safe to do so, meaning you aren't currently driving a car or operating heavy machinery, I invite you to physically participate in this with us. I want you to take a slow, intentional breath. Ready. Inhale deeply.
And just fill your lungs completely.
Hold it for just a second and exhale smoothly.
Let all the air out.
Now, I want you to silently repeat this healing affirmation to yourself. I am the sky. My emotions are just waves and clouds. I am safe.
I am the sky. My emotions are just waves and clouds. I am safe. Think about what that does to your brain. It immediately shifts your identity away from the chaotic storm and anchors you as the eternal, vast space that simply holds the storm.
It is remarkably peaceful when you frame it that way. Looking back at the journey we have taken in this deep dive, it is amazing how much perspective shifts just by changing our metaphors.
It really is.
We started by looking at that heavy diagnostic mystery of waking up sad, and we learned why our brains instinctively default to the blame cycle.
And by introducing the concept of emotional weather, we learned to observe rather than internalize. We moved away from the identity trap of, I am sad, and started watching our emotions as passing storm clouds in our unchanging blue sky.
And most importantly, we learned that we don't have to just stand in the rain. We can actively build a cozy shelter of self-kindness. We can give our nervous system permission to rest while we wait for the barometric pressure to stabilize.
What really stands out to you as the biggest takeaway from viewing our emotions through this specific lens?
For me, it completely validates the idea that acquiring the right vocabulary is so much more than just a communication exercise. Having words like cozy, temporary, and the idiom under the weather, it literally equips us with the mental tools to process our feelings in a healthier way.
Oh, absolutely.
The language we use creates the reality we live in. A new phrase isn't just a new sentence, it is a new way of seeing the world.
I couldn't agree more. When you truly internalize the word temporary, the overwhelming feeling genuinely becomes temporary. Language itself acts as a form of shelter.
It really does. We began this whole conversation contrasting physical injuries with mental ones. A broken bone gives you a clean X-ray, while our emotional worlds can feel incredibly murky and confusing.
Right, very foggy.
Exactly. But perhaps they don't have to be quite so terrifying if we just remember to look up at the sky. Which leaves me with a final provocative thought for you, the listener, to mull over as you go about your day.
Ooh, what's the thought?
Well, if you were truly the eternal vast blue sky, simply observing the weather passing through, then the next time a dark, heavy storm rolls into your mind, I wonder, can you sit back and watch it with a sense of gentle curiosity instead of fear? Can you watch the internal rainfall, simply wondering how quickly the winds might change?